So we have a guy with Bender in his last name playing a robot. Well, now that we got that out of the way, it's time for me to review some wrestling pay-per-views. We've got 2 coming up in the month of June 2012, and that would be TNA Slammiversary 10 and WWE No Way Out 2012. I will start with Slammiversary since that one's happening this Sunday. Since it's coming first, I guess I'll just talk about that first. And I just find it amazing that this card went from having like 4 or 5 matches to just overnight having 9. I don't know how that happened, but I was like, man, I'm really not going to have a whole lot to talk about on this pay-per-view. And then, boom, 9 matches out of nowhere. It was like, well, all right. I mean, I guess at least your full card's announced before the pay-per-view, but not a lot of it was really built up all that well. Mainly because a lot of it just feels like last second, just place it on the card just for the sake of filling out the card. I guess I should talk about the TNA Hall of Fame that they're doing with the first inductee being announced at this pay-per-view. And personally, and here's my take, and I'm going to tie in my feelings on the WWE Hall of Fame as well. I don't view the WWE Hall of Fame as having a whole lot of credibility to it, mainly because there's no physical hall, which I've heard that I've been hearing for years that the WWE is going to try and change that, but there's no physical actual Hall of Fame. It's just a plaque that they hand out, really. I guess a ring, but and there's no official voting system or method of selecting these guys for the Hall of Fame outside of, and my guess, I mean, this is how it comes across anyway, it's Vince McMahon going, okay, who do I like and who can I make money off of? And that's pretty much, I mean, that's your only criteria for getting in. If Vince likes you, or if Vince thinks he can make money off of you, that's how you get into the WWE Hall of Fame. And that's just the way it is. And that explains some of the weirder names that have gotten in there, like Coco Beware, and it also explains why guys like Bruno Sammartino and Randy Savage are not in there. Yeah, though Savage, now that he's unfortunately passed away, will probably, I would imagine he would get in at some point. But, yeah, so that's kind of my, outside of just the whole, hey, it's cool to honor that guy that I remember, there's not really a whole lot to the Hall of Fame, I don't think. Other than that, it's a cool little way to give an old guy a little bit of an attention, although it is weird to see somebody like Edge get in there after only being retired for a year. But so TNA doing this is really, to me, if I'm going to sit here and say that the WWE Hall of Fame has very little credibility or little significance to it, TNA's has even less, because WWE, especially after buying out WCW, ECW, AWA, and basically everything, they basically own the history of wrestling. Not everything, but they own enough of it, huge chunks of it. So they can lay claim to doing a Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame by themselves, because they own that much of the history. TNA, they've only been in business 10 years, and I don't think they have the history to warrant a Hall of Fame. That's just my question. Not question, but that's just my take on the whole thing. So, no, I'm not excited for this, and I feel like they're just doing it just because WWE's doing it. And, that's just pretty much all there is to it. Who do I think the inductee is going to be? Well, I was thinking Jeff Jarrett. That was the first name that popped into my mind. And then I thought, I guess it could be Jerry Lynn, too, somebody like that. And, it'd be cool for them to do a guest spot on the pay-per-view or something. However, with Dixie Carter's recent announcement that Christian Cage is going to be at Slammiversary, that makes me think, well, the WWE put Ric Flair in for the second time when they inducted the Four Horsemen, and TNA allowed Ric Flair to go. So it makes me wonder, it's like, is this kind of the trade-off where the WWE will allow Christian Cage to appear in a TNA paper? I mean, I think that would be really cool to have a WWE guy appear on a TNA show, and vice versa. It would be really cool to have like a crossover effect if a TNA guy like showed up on WWE while under contract with TNA or something like that. I just love stuff like that. It just tickles me for some reason. So like I think that would probably be the best option if they're allowed to do it. So we'll see what happens there. It'll be interesting to see if Christian, shows up and actually does something on the pay-per-view. Yeah, so that's interesting. But let's actually get into the matches themselves. Like I said, there are 9 of them, which sprout up overnight, I guess. And this one really floors me. I'm guessing it's going to be a pre-show match because I can't imagine this actually being on the actual show. Kid Cash versus Hernandez. Where the fuck did that match come from? I mean, Jesus Christ. I didn't know either guy was still under contract with TNA. Cash hasn't been there in a long time. I've heard he was preparing for an MMA fight or something, which I cannot picture that guy in an MMA fight. But, whatever. And Hernandez, I thought I thought Mexican America was done. I thought they got let go. So, okay, I guess. I'll be honest. I've never really been a big fan of Kid Cash. I think he's good on the mic. But in the ring, he never really was all that crisp. For some reason, he always had this one move where he would springboard and dive across the ring and try to land like a drop kick or something, but he would always fuck it up. And he was full of just awkward stuff like that. So I was never really a fan of his matches. And he's over 40 now, so I don't see the point in really even bringing him back. And Hernandez is a guy who I thought had a lot of raw potential, mainly because he's this big, muscled-up guy that can fly around the ring and do all types of athletic things. So I thought there was something to do with him. Unfortunately, when they tried to push him, it seemed like he regressed. He got worse, and he got dangerous because it seemed like he was hurting people left and right, and that's not good. So, my guess is these two guys are at their end of their rope anyway. I don't know who goes over. I guess Hernandez just because he's the big guy. Or maybe Cash, because I don't know, is Cash sticking around and this is Hernandez's last match? I don't know. I don't really care, to be perfectly honest. I've already talked way more about this match than I should. So moving right on. Tag team match. Television champion Devon and Garrett Bischoff versus Robbie E. and Robbie T. Okay, I'm going to ask a question to you all. Does anybody give a fuck? Anybody? Does anybody give a fuck about Garrett Bischoff? Does anybody give a fuck about this never-ending Devon-Robbie E feud, who I swear to God they've wrestled 20 times, and it's just this shit-fest of matches that nobody gives a crap about, and yet they keep doing it? Yeah, does anybody give a fuck? Anybody?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, moving on. Faces win tag match. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. Okay, next match. Crimson's Open Challenge to challenge his undefeated streak. Why does TNA always do open challenges? It seems like it's this old standby that they keep going to. I understand it's an old thing. TNA didn't invent this by any stretch of the imagination. They just seem to do it a lot. I remember I think they did it with Kurt Angle. I know they did it with Awesome Kong. They had to have done it with somebody else, and it's just slipping my mind right now. And they did it with Robbie E. a few months ago. He was doing open challenges. So now we've got Crimson being the heel, and he's like, oh, challenge my undefeated streak. Who do I think it's going to be? The selections that popped into my mind were James Storm making his return, and he ends Crimson's undefeated streak, which, dear God, let's all hope. Because, once the streak's over, Crimson's done, right? He's not, worth much other than that. Joey Ryan, who was the gut check guy that got rejected, but they did so much with him and made such a big deal out of his angle and his argument with Taz and everything that it just makes me think, yeah, he's under contract with TNA. They're going to use him. That was just a smoke screen or something. So they could pop him, insert him into this, and utilize, try to have him find a way to try and get back into TNA without winning the gut check, which could be interesting for him if they actually decide to go that route. There's that, and I've also heard that Chris Masters had a tryout match with TNA this week, right before or right after the Live Impact taping. And, I don't really know what kind of a talent Chris Masters is. I haven't really seen him that much since 2006. People have told me that he's improved tremendously. I can't confirm that. I don't know if it's true. I just haven't seen him. I don't know. So I don't know if Chris Masters is going to be the guy that answers Crimson's Open Challenge, and if he is signed to the TNA roster, I don't know if he's a good pickup for them. I do think that if he has improved, And to be honest, I thought he had raw potential in 2005. But if they do have him and they think he's a talent worth investing in, he can't be the masterpiece. Obviously, they can't use the name, but they have to completely repackage him. He can't be the narcissistic guy that looks in the mirrors and stares at his physique. He can't be that character because the WWE had him as that character, and they did nothing with it to the point where it just got devalued and regulated to C shows, and it just kind of faded and died this quick death. So if they're going to utilize Chris Masters, they've got to give him a total repackaging and let him be like a completely unique character and let him carve a new identity in TNA. And hopefully that that would work, because I think just going back to the masterpiece thing would just kind of remind people, it's like, hey, this gimmick flopped in the WWE, and it did. They're not necessarily through Masters' own fault. It's just the case. So my guess is it's going to be one of those three guys. It's either Storm, Joey Ryan, or Chris Masters that challenges Crimson, or Matt Morgan, who they did an injury angle with a couple weeks ago. And I'll say if it's Storm or Masters, Crimson will lose. If it's Joey Ryan, he'll probably lose. Joey Ryan will probably lose. And if it's Matt Morgan, it'll probably end in another draw. That's my prediction there. What else do we have? Oh. We have Austin Aries versus Samoa Joe, which is a match that could have been a special attraction for this pay-per-view, but they didn't build it up worth shit. So it's kind of just used on the card as filler. And that's a shame, because last month Austin Aries had the best built match on the show. And because it was the best built match on the show, it ended up being the best match on the show. Because the storyline that they had built up between him and Bully Ray translated into the match, and the match was the best match on the show. So... people underestimate what a great build-up can do to help a pay-per-view match. And, Aries and Joe, I think they could have done a great angle with this. Part of me wishes they would hold off on this and just do it at Destination X. Assuming that pay-per-view is going to be all X Division, I don't know. But, I don't see much of a reason to do, just rush this match out there with absolutely no build-up. They just did this little thing where Aries accidentally sprayed Joe with water, and then Joe got mad and interfered in a match, and that's the whole basis for the feud. And, they could have done so much with this, with Aries wanting to challenge the greatest X Division champions that came before him. They probably could have even gone into their Ring of Honor history. I don't know if they would want to do that, but Aries was the guy that ended Joe's title reign and his unbeaten streak in Ring of Honor, so... they probably could have mentioned that if they'd wanted to. I don't know. You probably tread dangerous waters when you do stuff like that, but I don't know if they would have been allowed to do that, or Ring of Honor would have been unhappy with it. But, it would have been, something, it's an idea to toy around with at least. But this feud just has nothing going for it, and it just feels like a filler match, and I was like, why even do it? If you were only going to give it, 3 minutes worth of build-up with no promo, no real... substantiated, interesting promos anyway. So this match, TNA's really seems to be really serious about pushing Austin Aries, so my guess is that he wins. I don't see any other reason for Joe to go over here. Joe's kind of, he's not the guy he was 5 years ago, and Aries is the star on the rise. So, and it'll probably be a good match. It'll probably be the sleeper hit of the show. It's just a shame they didn't do anything to build it up. But all right, next we've got Knockouts Championship. Gail Kim versus Brooke Tessmacher. Miss Tessmacher, whatever the fuck Lex Luthor's secretary's name is. I didn't agree with them doing this match because, again, it's a rushed title match that they just kind of threw onto the card just for the sake of having a title match on the card. And I think it would have been better if they'd taken that four-way match that they did on Impact and saved that for the pay-per-view, and then use that match to build up a month or 2 month title match between Gail and whoever won the four-way. Instead, they're just kind of putting a title match on the pay-per-view just for the sake of having a title match. And I've said before, I think that just kind of overexposes the title. Why do a title match with no build-up, on a pay-per-view that has little to no build-up? Really, she wrestled... Gail wrestled Brooke last month, and they did a little bit of build-up with it, but it didn't develop or anything past that point, so... And now they're just kind of revisiting it real quick, so I didn't understand the point of just going back to that well. Now I'm just not overly interested in this match at all, and I would have preferred them just do the 4-way match that they did on Impact here, and let a solid contenders match fill out a pay-per-view card, and then use that as a stepping stone to build up a bigger title match down the road. But that's just the way my mind works. I'm always thinking to the future. We got Bully Ray versus Joseph Parks, which, God, what to say about this? I mean, we all know that Joseph Park is Abyss, right? We all know. We all figured it out, like, the first segment, right? It wasn't just me. I certainly hope not. I think it's obvious how it's going to end. I think it's going to end with Joseph Park, like, ripping his teeth out and putting the mask on and saying, "Oh, I was Abyss the whole time," and probably debut a whole, like, multiple personality disorder thing with Abyss. I don't know. It'll be something like that, I think, where he dons the Abyss gear at the end of the match and beats the crap out of Bully Ray. So, I'll pick Joseph Park / Abyss to win. I don't know. Like, to me, this whole thing just feels like a Mr. America thing because we all know who it is. I mean, we all know it's Abyss, and they're trying to tell us that it's not, and it just comes across as kind of silly to me. But, it is what it is. And I didn't give a prediction for the Knockouts title match, probably because I didn't care. Gail Kim retains the title, but yeah, that's that. And what else does this have? We got a 3-way match between Mr. Anderson, Rob Van Dam, and Jeff Hardy, with the winner getting a title shot on the next Impact, which, I'd rather they'd set up something between Rude and Angle and set that up as a future match to do, because I think there's room to do a pay-per-view a pay-per-view rematch between those two, because Angle beat Rude at Bound for Glory, and there's room to do that. Like, Rude hasn't defeated Kurt Angle, so they could use that as a selling point for the main event. So maybe they'll do that. I don't know, since this next title match is going to be done next week anyway. I don't really know who wins. I mean, the fact that all 3 guys are faces, I guess they're all faces. I mean, Mr. Anderson, changes from week to week. You never know. But with all 3 guys being faces, that tells me that Rude's probably going to walk out with the title at Slammiversary, but I'll get into that match when I get to it. I think this match is fine. I mean, contenders matches don't really need to build up that much, especially if it's like a 3-way. You can just throw that out there and just do it. I think it's better than just doing it the way they normally do it, which is you have all 3 guys standing in the ring arguing on Impact. It's like, well, tonight our main event's going to be a 3-way contenders match, because I think I talked about that in my old top 15 wrestling cliches, where it's like that just always happens, where 3 guys are cutting a promo on each other about who the number 1 contender should be, and then magically they all get into a contenders match by the end of the show. So making it a pay-per-view match, I think, makes it a little bit better. And it'll probably be an okay. Well, you never can. I keep waiting for Hardy to fuck up, but we'll certainly see. So there's that. My pick to win, I guess Mr. Anderson, since he hasn't faced Rude for the belt yet. I don't know. That's just a thought. So there's that. And then there's the Tag Team Championship match, which I've got a lot to say about this angle. It'll be champions Christopher Daniels and Kazarian versus Kurt Angle and AJ Styles. Now, my whole feelings on this whole AJ Styles, Dixie Carter affair thing. First of all, how are Daniels and Kaz the bad guys here? How are they the villains in this whole situation? Because you got to look at it from their point of view. They feel that they've constantly been overlooked by TNA. Many, longtime followers of TNA would agree with that, to at least a certain extent. They've been constantly overlooked. AJ always gets favored over them, and this is where the storyline comes into play. And, as characters, I can understand that they're a little bitter about that, and they're trying to, why does he get pushed over us? And they find out that he's fucking the boss. It's like, there you go. I mean, I think that gives them a legitimate gripe, and it makes AJ and Dixie look like bad people. Cheating, no good, family-destroying assholes. And, you know, they try to make it sound like Daniels and Kaz are the bad guys that are destroying families. They're like, hey, look, don't cheat. I mean, come on. It's as simple as that. They're just angry because they figured out why that they've been, you know, overpushed. It's one of those situations like, it's like Undertaker and Kane. If they ever face each other, which I'm sure they will, because they'll wrestle each other 20 more times, that feud just will never die. I will always view Kane as the face because Undertaker murdered their parents. And yes, they did film a segment where Undertaker admitted to starting the fire that killed their parents. So I'm just sitting there thinking like, wow, Undertaker's a murderer? I'm like, okay, that's kind of dark, but it kind of makes Kane unequivocally the face, no matter what they do in that feud. It's like, he could put Undertaker, he could bury him alive, he could put him in a vegetative state for 6 months. Doesn't matter. Kane is the babyface because, look, Undertaker killed their parents. And that's just kind of how I view it. And that's kind of how I view this angle. I side with Daniels and Kaz in the whole thing. Because it's like, I think they got a legitimate gripe here. I don't think they're the bad guys at all. And my other problem with this is that it's yet another attempt by TNA. Speaking of feuds that have been going on way too long, it's another attempt by TNA to keep this AJ and Daniels thing going, and I am so goddamn sick of their matches. I just don't care anymore. Are AJ Angle, Daniels, and Kazarian going to go out there and have a very good match? Most likely. I think all four of those guys can combine together and have a very good match. That's great. That's all well and good. But god damn it, just let it go. AJ and Daniels is done. Please. And they have to drag Dixie Carter into this and say AJ's fucking her just for the sole purpose of keeping this feud going that I got sick of back in... I was sick of it by 2009. Like, I remember when they main evented. I think I said it last year. Yeah, last year for Destination X, when they were going to be the main event. I said a year ago that I had gotten sick of it in 2009, and it's a year later, and they've done it 10 more times since then. So, what are you going to do? I'm going to pick Daniels and Kaz to retain the titles, though I guess AJ and Angle could win the belts. But the reason I picked Daniels and Kaz to retain the titles is because, you know, like I said, I think Angle's going to be pushed up to face Rude eventually, so they'll have to keep him open for that. So, yeah, Daniels and Kaz retain the titles. What they fucking do, I guess. So, yeah, that just bothers me. But, yeah, there's that. And then there's the main event, Robert Roode versus Sting for the World Heavyweight title. I've already picked Roode to retain. I think he should retain. He better retain. I think this match is fine as long as Roode retains. There's no reason for Sting to be winning the title at this point. If they want to use him as a sacrificial lamb to keep Roode's reign going, I think that's fine. I already picked James Storm to be one of the guys that could potentially show up for the Crimson Open Challenge. If he doesn't show up there, I do think he'll show up here, and that'll be the last thing they do on the show, where Storm, you know, hits the ring and attacks Bobby Roode or something. That'll be the closing thing for Slammiversary, and that'll probably build up a rematch between the two at Bound for Glory. That's what I hope. I don't want Sting to win the title. I think that's a huge mistake. It would be like when Undertaker beat Punk for the title in 2009, which, again, I state this again, SmackDown never recovered from that. I think I can count on one hand the number of episodes of SmackDown I've watched since WWE did that move, but it would take, like, and here's why it's a bad move to have Sting win that match, or win the title. You build up this long title reign for a heel, and the reason to do that is to build up his heat, to build up his credibility, and just keep the ball rolling until you have somebody beat him, and then, theoretically, all of that credibility transfers over to the guy that beat him. That's what you do. And the best example, I keep going back to it, was probably WrestleMania 14, Michaels and Austin. I mean, that did wonders for Austin for his title win to be booked in that fashion because Michaels was such a strong heel champion. And that did, creatively, it did wonders for Austin and made him such a stronger character in the process. There is no point to build up all that credibility and then transfer it over to a guy who's already a legend. And like, Sting's gone as far as he's ever going to go. It's the same thing I said about Triple H ending the streak. There's no reason for Triple H to end the streak. He's already a legend. The win does nothing for him. That's why if it should ever end, it should go to a guy that you want to make into a legit big star. And it's kind of the same thing with Roode. If you want to make somebody legit, you build up that long title reign of Roode's, and then when he eventually falls, it'll mean something special. I think giving the win to somebody like AJ would be a mistake because AJ's already, you know, he's already been there, done that, you know. He ended Jarrett's title reign. Who, by the way, Jeff Jarrett is the longest reigning world champion in TNA history. That's still true. Yeah, it was the NWA title, but yeah, Jeff Jarrett's 11-month reign is still the longest. And until Rude passes that point, it'll stay true. But yeah, that's why you do things like that, like a long title reign, to eventually make a new star in the process. And I do think that giving this win to Sting would be a very, very, very bad idea. I wouldn't be surprised if they did it, because it's Sting, and they just seem to be obsessed with giving him feel-good moments for whatever reason. But I'm going to pick Robert Roode to win, and that's it. And that's my thoughts on Slammiversary 10. Not the most impressive card for a big milestone pay-per-view. It is a milestone. They've been around for 10 years. I just don't think they built up the card all that well. I think they spent all their time building up the move to do live impacts starting at 8 o'clock. I think that was something that they put a lot of time and energy to the point that they kind of didn't build Slammiversary that much, outside of the fact they kind of sold it as like, it's the big party because it's the milestone pay-per-view. But they didn't build a lot of the matches up all that well, and I think that's a problem. And the matches they did build up well have angles that aren't very interesting to me. So, yeah, that's Slammiversary, and I guess here's hoping for a good show. My hopes aren't high, but we'll see. Well, thank you for that, Monty Python. And now it's time to talk about WWE's No Way Out 2012, which only has 3 matches officially announced. One match that I think is very likely to happen, and another match that was supposed to happen but got completely kicked out the window. So let's start with that one. We were supposed to get Randy Orton versus Chris Jericho. That was obviously the plan, and that match got scrapped because, A, Chris Jericho got suspended for the flag kicking incident over in Brazil, which I think was completely ridiculous. And the reason it's ridiculous, and my good buddy Eric brought up this great point. It's amazing how the media kind of reacts to wrestling. Like they'll say it's fake, until they don't want it to be fake. And somehow it's Chris Jericho's a disgusting person for kicking a flag in Brazil, even though JBL goose-stepped in Germany and didn't get punished by the WWE, and, there are Canadian flags out there with Shawn Michaels' snot and semen on it, but that's okay. He didn't get suspended. But Jericho gets punished for kicking a Brazilian flag. Why should Jericho be held accountable for something that his character did? Like a scripted performance, and he gets punished for it. I don't understand it. If that happened on a TV show, they wouldn't be calling for the actor to get suspended or anything like that. So it's just funny. It's like wrestling's fake until they don't want it to be. I think that's really, really crazy. So yeah, I think Jericho's suspension was completely stupid, and I don't see why WWE decided to do it. I can understand issuing an apology to the Brazilian audiences, which again I don't know why they would get that upset over it. Again, considering a lot of the other things that have happened in wrestling, but I don't see why the character Chris Jericho, or the real person playing the character Chris Jericho that you see on WWE television, should be punished for that. So, it is what it is. Jericho kind of got the brunt of something stupid. As for Randy Orton getting a wellness violation that keeps him off 60 days, he's an idiot. At this point, you have to know that you're going to get tested, and you have to know that you're going to get caught. If Rey Mysterio didn't show that, then I don't know what to tell you people. That's just dumb as monkey fucks to get caught at this point. I don't know, and I think it'll severely impact Orton's future within the WWE, but we'll see what happens once his suspension's up. So there's that. We're not getting a Chris Jericho Randy Orton match at the pay-per-view. I don't know what they're going to put in its place. It looked like they were going to do Ziggler and Orton out of nowhere, and then Orton went away. They were going to use Ziggler to replace Jericho, and then Orton got suspended later that week, so they kind of left Ziggler on an island. Not a whole lot of matches being set up for this pay-per-view, and looking at what they're doing on TV, I can't imagine what the rest of... you'll probably get a Ryback match. You'll probably get a Funkasaurus match. You'll probably get The Miz thrown out there at some point or something. Dolph Ziggler will probably do something, but there's just not a whole lot of a direction going on right now outside of what they already have established. I do think there will be an Intercontinental title match between Cody Rhodes and Christian because they seem to, want to keep that feud going. And one thing I will comment on is that if the rumors are true that Cody Rhodes is going to get pushed into a world title feud with CM Punk at sometime this summer, that was the reported rumor. I don't know if that's true, but if that is true, the WWE has done a very bad job of setting up Cody Rhodes for that feud. I said it back at WrestleMania. He shouldn't have lost the IC title to Big Show just for the sake of giving Big Show a WrestleMania moment. But okay, they corrected that. They had him win the belt back next month. Okay, fine, whatever. And then he just lost the title to Christian out of fucking nowhere, where Christian's a face now out of nowhere, even though Punk beat him up. I guess they could revisit that at some point, but he was off TV originally because CM Punk kicked his ass and beat the crap out of him, and yet on Raw he's all of a sudden against Johnny Ace and he's joining up with CM Punk. I don't understand it. Consistency, what's that? But there was no reason for Christian to take the title off of Cody Rhodes, especially if they have a plan in place for Cody to face Punk for the title, because Cody, they should be using the IC title run. Again, if there is a plan to put him in the main event, they should be using the IC title run as a place to get him ready for that. So he has to stay strong, credible, and then eventually lose the IC title in a big match that matters. Probably the best example of that would be The Rock in 1998. He had a really long reign as IC champion, beat everybody through Weasley tactics, and he came out of the title by the skin of his teeth, but he did it. And then he lost the belt to Triple H in a huge match at the end of a big program. And the loss did nothing to hurt Rock, and they were able to easily transition him over into that main event level, which led into his big title win at SummerSlam. If they do, if they move Cody into the world title picture with Punk after, he's done with Christian, it'll just be like, okay, you pushed and pulled and pushed and pulled and pushed and pulled so much that I don't see Cody as a credible threat to Punk at all. I don't see him as like the top guy at all, and that falls entirely on the booking. It has nothing to do with Cody Rhodes as a talent. I actually, felt that legacy should have been something that led Cody to something bigger, and him and DiBiase ended up just becoming Bebop and Rocksteady, in that they were just the two stooges that got beat up all the time, and were used, throw banana peels in front of them, they slip all over the place and look stupid. They did not come out of Legacy looking very good at all, and again, if I can't imagine if you want Cody to be one of your top heels in the summer, why you would book his IC title run like this. I don't understand it, but I think Cody and Christian will have a better match than they did last. What was it? Over the Limit? Because again, that's assuming they'll do it, because it'll have a little bit more promotion behind it, and it'll be more expected. And Christian's a face now has actually been a little bit more set in stone by this point. So it'll be something a little bit better, and that's fine. It'll be a good match, so no problems there. I guess Christian retains the title if Cody's going to go off to face Punk. I don't know, but whatever. Then we have the World Heavyweight title. Dear God, Sheamus versus Alberto Del Rio for the World Heavyweight title. Now, I want you all to ask me a question. Ask me, how many fucks do I give? How many fucks do I give about this match? The answer is 0. I don't give a single fuck about this match. You have a title that doesn't mean anything. So the thing that they're contesting over is meaningless. You have a babyface that isn't connecting with the audience in any kind of way. He's just the guy holding the belt, basically. And you have Alberto Del Rio, who's a really boring heel. I've been saying that for a long time. He's Mexican JBL. That's all he is. And he sucks on the mic. He's a boring character. Ricardo is more interesting than him. So I just don't give a damn about this match. If the antagonist is boring and the protagonist is boring and the thing they're fighting over is boring, then I don't give a fuck. It's storytelling 101, people. I mean, Jesus Christ. I guess it's the battle of the last two Royal Rumble winners. Who Great one. You know, last month they had to add Jericho and Orton into this match just to make people give a shit, and that barely worked last month. I don't give a shit now. I just have, it's awful. It's awful. Again, I'm not saying the guys aren't talented workers. I'm just saying the storyline is just boring as fuck. Then you have the WWE Championship match, which will be CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan versus Kane. And it's almost like the WWE sat there and said, hey, people are really, they really like that over the limit match between CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. It was a very good match. We didn't do anything to really promote it either. They just kind of, they just went out there and had a great match, huh? You know what this needs? Kane. Yeah, let's throw Kane into the mix. Kane, the epitome of everything that is fresh, exciting, and cool in modern day wrestling. Yeah, let's throw Kane out there again. It'll be a good match because you got Punk and Bryan in there, and they'll be able to play off of Kane's size and everything. But Kane really dilutes from the storyline, I think, because he was kind of meandering around and then just kind of got thrown into this. When you got CM Punk, who is your best option as champion at this point, and you got Daniel Bryan, who's this heel that really caught on and hasn't really won anything. The only match I've seen him win that I can recall was the match over Jerry Lawler, and that somehow made him #1 contender. And I would have... Oh, he did beat Punk in that non-title match. But then he lost his heat right afterwards because Kane beat him up, and then Punk beat them both up, so, whatever. But... So they got, Daniel Bryan really caught on with the yes chance and everything, and yet they've done very little to really build up his heat heading into this match. I guess Punk retains because, if he loses the title here under these circumstances, I think it would be kind of pointless. I keep waiting for AJ to screw Punk over because they're, doing that whole psycho chick thing with her, but I don't know. I just think adding Kane to this match just makes it a lot less interesting, and I wish they had actually put a little bit more effort into making the Punk-Bryan rivalry meaningful and make it mean something, because the matches are going to be good. We know that. Matches are going to be great. That's a given. Give them the story to complement that, and you'd have wrestling magic. But, what do I know? I'm just a I'm just a dork on YouTube. I'm not even being sarcastic there. I am a dork. But, and then you have the main event of the pay-per-view. John Cena versus The Big Show, which, one thing I will give them credit for on this, Big Show is a very good actor, at least by wrestling standards, and his promos are more believable, and his motivations are more believable than, a lot of other guys that get the stick. And Big Show is very good at that, and he always has been, and he hardly ever gets credit for it, and that's one of his best attributes, really, is that he is a very good actor. The problem, though, is that, we've seen this match a dozen times. Big Show slammed Cena through a goddamn spotlight, and Cena came back the next night. But once you slam somebody through a spotlight, isn't that about as intense as your feud is going to go? And I love that they're saying, like, oh, Cena and I were friends, and then he acted like a goof and betrayed me. And it's like, you were friends? You threw him through a goddamn spotlight. And Cena's like, Big Show was my friend. It's like, he threw you through a goddamn spotlight. Does nobody remember this crap but me? Jesus. So there's that. But again, it plays into that logic. It's like, oh, well, if they're both baby faces, then all baby faces must be friends. And that's all the logic that went into that. And I love how they're trying to say, like, oh, Big Show's unbeatable. He's this giant. He's this massive, unbeatable, unstoppable force. Yet just a couple months ago, they were doing a WrestleMania angle where Cody Rhodes went on and on and on about how much he sucked. Big Show has lost all the time. Cena has given him the AAFU, whatever the fuck you want to call it. He's given that move to him 87 kajillion times. He's not unbeatable based on the way he's been presented. And I especially love how they're acting like this is the first time that Big Show's ever turned heel, when in reality, it's almost like an annual thing with him. Going back to his WCW days, where he joined the NWO like 12 times, and then when he first came to the WWE, I think he changed heel and face like 5 times within the course of 2 years. Maybe more than that. And he's been back and forth heel face tons of times. And I just love that they're trying to make it sound like, no, he's just been a lovable goof for 15 years, and now he's pissed off, and he's an angry monster now. And, for this storyline to be compelling, you basically have to ignore Big Show's entire career. And I think that's kind of funny. But Big Show's a lot like Kane, where they keep trying to revive him, they keep trying to make him a monster, and it always fizzles out. I mean, him and Kane will probably be a tag team again. Haven't they done that like 3 times? Where it's like, oh, we don't really know what to do with you guys, so we'll just throw you together as a tag team. And I think they've done that with Kane and Big Show like 3 times. But it's just, yeah, I don't care. And by the way, their match is a steel cage match. I don't know if I mentioned that, but just, wow. I just really don't care. And it's all tied into the Johnny Ace situation, which, who gives a damn? Who gives a damn about that? And by the way, I do have to comment about this on Raw, that John Cena-Michael Cole match, which might have beaten out Cena and Ace as being the worst match in 2012 so far. That was a bizarre, uncomfortable, slightly homoerotic match. Okay, so Cena's method of mocking Michael Cole is to strip him down to his underwear and rub barbecue sauce all over him. Okay, I mean, not that there's anything wrong with homosexuality or anything. I'm just saying it's a little weird. I thought Heidenreich was going to pop up and ass rape Michael Cole again. It was kind of strange, and the fact that it was just completely terrible. But it's like, it was one of those moments where I'm like, wow, the WWE can truly get away with anything, and they know it. But yeah, the card for No Way Out not looking very promising. The card's just half empty, right? I mean, I know they have another week. I mean, they might do what TNA did and just spring 5 matches on us completely out of nowhere. The last show, but well, the way WWE does things, they'll spring up 5 matches the night of the show and not tell anybody until it's curtain time. But yeah, so the card's just really barren, and the matches they have just aren't that interesting, or aren't as interesting as they should be. I mean, if they do it, Cody and Christian might be the best match on the show from a storyline perspective, and that's kind of sad. But man, not a whole lot of intrigue. Both pay-per-views, kind of weak sauce in the build-ups this month. I'm not impressed at all. But oh well, what can you do? But yeah, I've rambled on enough about pay-per-view previews. Thank you all for watching, and I will be back next week. Again, I'm still planning to do a tribute to my favorite episode of Monday Night Raw. That will be coming up in some point within the next few weeks as we head closer to the 1,000th Raw episode. I mean, I do think that is a huge milestone for Raw, that they've reached 1,000 episodes, and I think that's a cool thing to celebrate, which is why I'm doing this video. I just recently rewatched my favorite episode of Raw. I found it on YouTube, and I have a lot to say about it. Mostly positive, of course, because I love it. But yeah, it might end up being a pretty long video. Hopefully not as long as this one, but probably a 20 to 25 minute video, just me talking about one episode of Raw. But I have a lot of things to say about it regarding what they accomplished, what was done creatively, what was done by the performers, and how it compares to today's show and how they do things today. So I think it'll be interesting to talk about. I'm actually really looking forward to doing that video. But until then, I'll see y'all later, and peace out.